So monoculture's dead. Frankly, this isn't even all that interesting of like an observation anymore. Everybody has made this point before, right? The idea of having massive cultural moments that everybody tunes into is, just more or less a thing of the past. You can point to some recent examples, right? Oftentimes you'll see people point to, Brat last year was pretty big, right? The Kendrick and Drake beef, I remember a lot of people pointing to that when it happened as an example of monoculture. But if we look at like monoculture proper, like Seinfeld in the 90s, 100 million people tuned into that final episode, right? At the same exact time. That's not over the course of things, it's the same exact time. Nothing like that exists. Numbers-wise, there is no such thing as a mass cultural experience like that just happens anymore, right? This is a fact of modern life. Why has this happened? I don't know, there's a ton of, different opinions on this. I'm gonna, for the sake of this video especially, just go on a limb and call it the internet as a whole. I mean, I don't think that's the most controversial way to look at it, but I think that's a safe way for sure, say the internet is largely what has caused it. But I wanna ask another question on top of that observation. Why shouldn't subculture exist? Because I think logic would imply, if you were to go back to the 90s, pre-internet, and tell somebody this idea of like you guys listening to all the same albums and these cultural moments and all this stuff where you can talk to your coworker about the new episode of that sitcom last night, that's gonna end. I think on average, people would say, okay, well what's coming in its place is probably still really great. It's probably just smaller, more niche things. Everybody's gonna have their own little thing. And that's going to be really cool too. I think what I'm trying to get at here is that I think if you were to tell somebody that monoculture is going to go away, they would say subculture must be thriving. And this makes sense. I mean, if in the same way that it kind of exists in a similar light now, right? Definitely to a lesser extent where like an artist like a Taylor Swift will get a ton of hate just by virtue of being one of the biggest artists. Like, people hate anything when it becomes too popular, too mainstream. Then people kind of start shying away from it. Marvel movies. People love shitting on Marvel movies because they're like, this is the most popular thing, right? I think it makes sense then that in reaction to that, everybody will have their own niche thing, right? Their own sort of culture. To an extent, I think we should give credence to the idea, and I should also say that right up front here. I'm not the first person to point out this observation that monoculture and subculture should kind of have an inverse thing, or perhaps one would think they would have an inverse thing. And I think there are multiple perspectives on how it's worked in the modern day. One of the common perspectives is that the way in which it has worked is that we all do kind of have our own individual sense of culture now. It's just our feed. Our feed is our culture. And, some people you have the same feed as, some people you don't, and some people similar creators you'll both be familiar with. None of this is revolutionary stuff. I mean, you're probably viewing this on a feed just like that right now, right? So one could say that that is the new subculture, that it's not just the idea of subculture of small groups of people coming together and be like, we all like this thing. It's now feeds, and you don't really know those small groups of people face to face, but if you look at this video, and let's say this video has like 2 likes, those other 2 people are the people in your subculture or whatever, right? Those are the people who share the same interests as you. You could extrapolate so many things from this. Cultures moving around people or individual creators. I don't love this idea, just in general. I kind of don't love this idea because I think there's an essential part of how subculture at least used to function and still does. Like if you and it should be stated that this very much does still exist out in the real world off the internet. If you do go into, I think it's lesser now than it once was, but if you go into these spaces where they are making culture, in big quotations, I don't know if you want to call it that, that is an essential part of it, is those other people that you're interfacing with directly and creating culture with, whatever that creation might look like. Now, I think then the next very simple, easy place to go would be, Discord is where culture is happening. And I know that seems crazy, but if you go onto a Discord for a major streamer or something, fan communities will splinter off from sort of these big things. And, somebody who's in the, I don't know any creator Discords because I'm not I almost said something very mean about you good folks on Discord. No, but I mean, you know, you'll be in different Discords for adjacent creators, adjacent interests. Maybe if you're in the Discord for Crunchyroll, you'll be in the Discord for Sword Art Online. I don't know if those two are Discords, but you know, something like that. And what often happens in these Discords is much of the content you see, whether it be clipped or whatever, comes out of these things. A lot of content is being made in Discords. I think this is one of the most interesting things that we don't see, is that so much of the way things move online is actually small groups of people being like, we should make stuff around this. You know, we should get some stuff out there. Or, you know, just a bunch of people with common interests who all run meme pages. Is that what subculture looks like now? I think if you want to try and come up with like a one-for-one analog of what subculture is today, I think this is, I unfortunately would say I think this is your answer. And I say unfortunately because I don't like that answer. I think that's a pretty lame answer. But it's the closest thing to a one-to-one digital analog of subculture, right? It's people who are all coming together around a common interest to quote-unquote make culture, right? I want to talk about not so much the idea, though, of like a direct analog in its proper sense. Because a direct analog of just like a subculture, because there's not a person limit on subculture, you know, it's not like starting a church. So, I mean, you could say if direct analogs to digital subculture just being people in chat rooms who are coming up with things to do, you know, you and your friend's group chat is now a subculture. Like, you could make that argument, right? So I kind of don't love this idea of a direct analog at all for this conversation, actually. I think it's pretty lame, because I think that what subculture represents outside of where these small groups exist, you know, because, like, let's talk about pop art, or like the art scene in New York in the 60s. That theoretically started as sort of a subculture, but what we know of pop art is not the people that were just there. We know the larger footprint that is left, right? There were like 20 people in these bars, you know, it wasn't, there's no argument that like the interesting part of that scene was the individual conversations happening. Those might be fun anecdotes for those of us who are really into it, but that's not at all why we find these things interesting. No, we find them interesting because of the footprint that it leaves. So I think we should say, you could also say the footprint of subculture then is the content they make on the internet, but I don't know. I think that's a reasonable enough answer. I have another answer though. My answer is that I think subculture is moving. I think that it's been, well, one, I don't think it exists. I don't think it properly exists in its form. I also would go as far as saying that I think that our conceptions of subculture and monoculture are extremely, I think we're weird for expecting them to exist in the modern day. Not weird as in it's not, I think it's a nice thing. I think it'd be great if they still existed. But weird as in like, they kind of never existed before then. They never existed after then. Like if you were there was like a very small period of time, if you actually look at it, when we were equally globalized and media could move, and just enough media could move that we were all experiencing the same stuff. Like, if you go back to like the 20s, right? Maybe a little earlier than the 20s. 100 years ago, subculture and monoculture would not be things that existed. It'd just be who you and your small town or your city, what they were doing. That's why if you hear about any artist, I mean, this is even up to the 90s, they don't introduce them by like their genre, they introduce them by the city they're from. The genre's implicit in that, right? Everybody knew that in New York City in like the 80s, hip hop was what people were doing in the Bronx and Brooklyn, right? So when you were introducing somebody, saying they're out of New York, that was kind of inferred. When you say Bob Dylan's from the Greenwich scene of the 60s, it's inferred the type of stuff they're doing there, right? That's very much how things used to move, and I think you could argue we're just getting back to that, right? But I think we're also coming back to another thing. I think that the most effective way to divide, because what we're really talking about here is dividing the culture of the internet. It's a tough task, it's a big thing. It's a tough task to take up, right? I think if you were to divide the culture of the internet, it would be kind of worthless to do it in that way of subculture, monoculture, big, small, whatever, right? Because what are we gonna say? Like our monoculture is Mr. Beast? Speed? Like, I don't know. There's something that is distinctly, as much as it might fit the definition of the numbers, distinctly non-monocultural about the actual impact these things have in the real world, right? I think rather that subculture and monoculture are going to be defined or these new versions of them, because I don't believe they'll exist in the form they once did, I think they're going to be defined more so by the... I feel like this is kind of a almost out there thing to say, because I don't think this is how it'll actually look in practice, but I think if I were to put a name to it, I think they'll be defined by the philosophies that people bring along with them as they create things. You know, there are distinctive groups of people on the internet making things that are, you know, I mean, you're watching one of them right now. This is something that distinctly tries to be non-internet, a little more into the, you know, a little more mindful about, I don't know, just coming across as something that somebody wants to create. And there's a good deal of stuff like that coming out on the internet. More and more by the day, you see content that's not oriented around watch times or trying to be a good internet show, but rather just people trying to make something that's cool on the internet. I think that's going to be, you know, something that we split off to. I also think you'll see a rise in people who are trying to make something that is maybe cool and artistic and has a message, but at the same time, it is more appealing to these algorithmic forces, if you want to call them that. I think maybe you'll see people going even further, trying to make something super artistic, movies. You know, I think as the internet ages, because that's really what we're in the infancy of this format, right? As this ages, I think you're just going to see more diversity of how people go about doing things, right? And like, you'll know your friend not as somebody, you won't be like going to your friend like, oh, my friend's into goth or punk like maybe you once would. You'll be saying, oh, I have a friend who's into more artistic YouTube, if that's gonna be a thing. And I have a friend that's more into sketch YouTube. I have a friend who's into film YouTube. You know, I think it's gonna split off more, perhaps into genres, but you know, oftentimes we think of genres as a very aesthetic experience, right? You think of genres as being like, okay, horror is gonna have, you know, dimly lit set pieces and blood and monsters. You know, we think of it like that very often. I don't think of it like that. I don't think that's what it's gonna look like. I think it's more going to look like people being attracted to certain things based off of what they experience as a consumer. You know, the other day we were talking about art. Maybe art, we could view it just purely as a tool, right? Like kind of this almost cynical perspective on art. I think that that's where people are going to start seeing content. Not so much as being, you know, a cool, like aesthetic experience of like, oh, I'm watching a horror movie right now, but more so as this idea of like, I want to watch something, how am I going to use it, right? I think you see this in podcasting a lot. People watch podcasts because they just want something to throw on in the background while they do the dishes. That's a type of usage for content, and the philosophy that the creator, you know, goes about making the content will influence if it can be used in that way or not. Something that I think a lot of people use this for, right? So I think that's my take on how things are going to move and what the next sort of phase of this all looks like. Obviously, you know, I'm not, sorry, I gotta... Always tough to do small details. I really wish I could have a bigger canvas. You know, I think that'd be much better for these paintings. If there was a little bit of a bigger canvas. Not bad, actually. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, that's my take. Obviously, I think it should be said I'm pulling this all, like, out of my hands. Like, you know, this isn't... Like, I'm not, like... Can you be qualified to talk about this? Because if you can, I'm not. This is just, like, my take on, like, what I'm watching happen. This is the painting. We're still here with the red, even though I said I wanted to get away from it. Honest answer, I mean, you know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I thought I had one more in me. I didn't think I had one more in me. I just didn't get around to cleaning the brushes yesterday or getting the new paints out. And I was like, you know what? Would it kill him? Would it kill him to see another red? Because I don't think it did. So, truth bomb. No, I mean, this is cool. I think I got some nice texture in here. I think the clouds look better than they could. But I think the people are just, you know, I was supposed to be a guy kneeling down and grabbing his kid or whatever, but I don't think it looks good. I don't think it looks good at all. So, I mean, like, it's fine. I don't know why I'm talking so much about a painting I don't feel anything towards. Go check it out on the TikTok and the Instagram, though, if you do. Holy transition right there. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dyson, Paint Talk episode 342. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.